everyone. I am Isabel, and this is my friend Daniel. Daniel, say hello.
Hi there, how are you doing?
Awesome. I am doing a conversation, and I am inviting my friends to this conversation with my other friend, Daniel, who is virtually by my side. Daniel and I were inspired to have this conversation and record it for you to listen to because we gained some insight and inspiration from our non-physical team. I just wanted to share with you. Daniel channels the Oracle, and the Oracle is part of my soul group. There are many things in play, but Oracle's guidance, his team, the Oracle, is also my guidance and team. Isis is a mutual connection between us and Daniel and I. And as you know, my friends, Isis is one of my main guides. And we wanted to share a little story of psychic abilities and how the awakening has happened for individuals. So, and maybe you can relate, or maybe something will be triggered within you. And Daniel, before we were starting the recording, you had just wanted to share your journey, meaning that he was born in a certain type of family and had a certain type of experiences that put him on a trajectory, but there was always clues or breadcrumbs that he had this ability with the Oracle. So Daniel, can you give us a little background?
Sure. So I grew up in a big family, mom, dad, five siblings. I'm the second oldest of five. And so basically, I come from a Catholic background, Roman Catholic, blue collar family. And really, we were very active in the Catholic Church when I was in high school, especially. But there were really parts of me that over time did not resonate so much with Roman Catholicism, or I dare say even Christianity as far as mainline religion. And part of that is me being gay, that I didn't really feel at home anymore with the Catholic Church because of how gay people are regarded as sinners in the church. So it really prompted me on a spiritual path, but just to kind of put a pause on that for a moment. So just a couple of things. When I was growing up, it's like I had these little tidbits, or what you would call, Isabel, breadcrumbs from the non-physical that were really interesting. And it's kind of cropped up over time, even before I did a deep dive into consciousness and spirituality. So just to give you an example, so when I was in high school, I remember, and I don't remember what class it was, but I took a test, like a pop quiz, and the teacher put on there a bonus question. The bonus question was, how many candidates are running for mayor for the city of Houston, where I live? And instantly I got into my mind a big number like 11 or 13. I don't quite remember, but I remember it was definitely over 10. And so I immediately brushed that aside and went, and I didn't know the true answer, so it was like I didn't know from watching the news what the answer was, but I got this number and I'm like, no, that can't possibly be. So I think I wrote 7 or 8. Well, when she handed us back the pop quizzes the next day, she X'd it out and she put that the number was 11 or 13, whatever it was that I attracted, right? So that was like, oh, wow, Again, I had not watched the news. I not read the newspaper. I didn't know, but I attracted this. So that was kind of like little breadcrumbs that have been left for me by my non-physical team. And just to share with you one other experience, and this was just from a few years ago. So at work, there was a guy that sold precious stones. I think it was quartz. I'm not really sure, but it was a beautiful stone. And he happened to have pulled it out, showed it to somebody. And I felt the energy from this precious stone, like just really like, oh my God, like I've got to hold it, right? So he allowed me to hold it. And it's like, I felt from, head, you know, all the way down this energy. And um, I, at that moment, got that there was an older male in his family that also sold or traded gemstones. So I asked him, or I told him, I said, you have an older male in your family that sells these stones too, right? He goes, yeah, my dad. And he kind of looks at me like, how did you know that? So again, these are just the breadcrumbs. Just kind of like I was already being prepared by what I come to know now as my non-physical team. And it really was the start of my spiritual awakening. So, but just to kind of fast forward to where I met you, Isabel, is that so we both have gone through what's called the Joshua Boot Camp. Joshua is a team of non-physical entities, that a collective is channeled by Gary Timble Botley. He has channeled from Joshua 4 books. He has a boot camp that you've gone through and that I've gone through as well. But the Joshua community really is a spiritual community, and you and I met at a retreat. And you told me later that it's like we were being picked up at the airport, and as soon as you got into the van or vehicle after I did, you picked up on my psychic energy. So, and then from there, I guess talk about how we've done together these quantum healing hypnosis technique sessions together.
Yes. So when Daniel came into the truck, I am very blessed with my psychic abilities. I feel an energy. So when Daniel was telling the story about holding that stone and getting a download of information, that's really what it is. It's like you have this knowing and you don't know where it comes from, but you just have this knowing. Just like how the number popped into his mind, he got the number 11. And even though rationally he couldn't say, well, how do I even know that? And that's why he discounted that. That is what humans do. That is what psychic ability is. The word psychic just means soul. And I think some people kind of get intimidated by the word psychic, but it means soul or butterfly in Greek. And your soul is pure love. So there's nothing to fear around being psychic. There's nothing to fear about getting a downloaded piece of information. There's nothing to fear around feeling energy, whether you hold a crystal or when Daniel came into the truck, I felt like this vibration. And I said, ooh, he's psychic. He's psychic, you know? And so the Daniel and I ended up talking, and I would say on your spiritual journey, one of the important things that all of us need to do, doesn't matter if it's just Daniel, doesn't matter if it's just Isabel, but all of us need to do this, is really learn how to process fear. It's really learn how to process limiting beliefs. And there are many teachers out there. Daniel and I just found the teachings of Joshua. That's what our path connected. And I also do past life regressions, and I put Daniel under, and that's when the oracle came forth in his session. Now, I always say, whoever comes to me, whoever gets put under by me, I always say, we open up your psychic door. So if you're ready to open up your psychic door, well, this is just one modality. You certainly don't have to be put under, but it is a shortcut, because once you feel your soul or your entities, your non-physical entities talk through you, and you feel the energetic work, right, Daniel? I think your
Yes.
first session, you felt that energy course through you.
Yes. I mean, I actually, to the point to where I had physical manifestations, I just, my body was just like jolting. And I think I even jolted up like this at some point because I was laying down on my couch. We were doing a remote session.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I even say like they lit me up like a Christmas tree because there was just so much energy coursing through me. Um, and I really think that that was the expansion of the psychic field, you know, that I'm swimming in. But uh, one thing that's very interesting is that uh, I had desire to explore a past life because I do have vague knowledge psychically, and I've had since I was in high school, of a past life in which I was in Egypt. On a soul level, I really do resonate with the Mediterranean. But I have an idea of a life, or rather just like a sketch, in which I was an alkalite studying to be a priest in ancient Egypt, right? So, however, I was not shown a past life in the regression, but what came forward was the oracle, and the oracle did not reveal themselves right at that moment. But I will remind you and tell whoever's watching this that I was taking a shower just a couple of days later. So I got up out of bed, very calm, you know, kind of that in between, like you're just kind of waking up and you take a shower and you kind of perk up in the shower. Well, you know, the water's flowing onto me, and suddenly I hear a voice, my own voice, in my own voice, say, "We are the Oracle." I was like, you know, like I was just really astounded. And it was like that was the revealing of the name of the collective that I was starting to become acquainted with, but I didn't really know who they are. But the interesting thing is that after the first session, uh, I started channeling for you some things, and you were just really impressed. Of course, I had really no baseline because at that point I really didn't know too much about channeling, so I didn't know. And I was do the channeling, going through a lot of like archetypes about the woman warrior, and many different things. But I do remember that in those channelings, this what I was channeling, they kept saying in truth, in truth. And so then for the oracle to be revealed to me, it's like it's a no-brainer because that's what people did in antiquity. They went to the oracle for guidance, for truth. So there's like they were dropping those breadcrumbs at that time too, before I even got the name the oracle. But I will say that it's just really interesting because another thing that they said is that we are the singularity to the Crystal Light Collective's multiplicity because you are in touch. Your non-physical team is you call the Crystal Light Collective, uh, Isis, Athena, and then some of the other extra dimensionals like Pleiadians, and then
Arcturians.
Arcturians, and then those from Atlantis, correct, and
Mhm.
Lemuria.
A
So
lot of Atlanteans, a lot.
yes, yes,
And
yeah,
Egyptian, yes.
and Egyptian, yeah. So to me, it's just fascinating, and that really brings up the concept of soul families that I recently learned about. So explain what a soul family is.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite subjects because when we're born here on earth, we have our physical family or our biological family or paternal family or friend family. We have a lot of different types of family, and I studied to be a therapist, so I had to study family, different families as a course. And I would say what's exciting about soul families is just as above is so below. We have many soul families, and I get the pleasure to meet my soul family. Daniel lives in Texas and I live in Connecticut, but I am telling you, we are brothers and sisters, you know. Yes, we don't have the same biological parents, but Daniel and I feel very close to each other and we understand each other and we can communicate with each other and collaborate very easily. And that is just so much fun to be reunited with your soul family. And especially when you're psychic, I have to say, we love validating each other, right? Because here's the harsh reality of it all, guys. When you are psychic, it's in your mind. It's still in your mind. It's like you can't see the radio waves going in front of my face, right? But there's radio waves because you're watching this video, trust and believe, right? You can't see electromagnetic fields unless you have a special instrument. But we know there's electromagnetic fields because this video wouldn't be able to be created without those fields. It's nice working with other psychics or your soul family to validate you, because then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you heard it. I'm so glad you saw it. So glad you got the same feeling, because there's no one else validating. So it's like really nice. And this is why we wanted to talk about our psychic abilities with you guys, so that it feels comfortable. So it's not so scary. It's sort of like, I'm just going to say it, but puberty is really super awkward for humans here, right? But once you have a friend and you talk to your friend about your body changes and your emotion changes and how you look at things differently, or different genders, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, right? But it's so nice when you come across somebody else with that same experience and you're like, oh, phew, okay, I'm not going crazy. I'm not losing my mind. And then when you become more relaxed around your abilities, I personally could never go back being a muggle, and a muggle is a non-magical folk. Thank you, J.K. Rowling, for that word. But it's the best. It's the best opening up. It's so great to be psychic. It's so great because you get assistance and help with your everyday life. And one of the things that we learned with the teachings of Joshua, and here's a concept for you guys to kind of, maybe listen to and accept this, but this is going to be hard, but all fear, including death, is irrational. And that's a big one, because you think your fear, I'm not saying how you feel is not valid. I'm just saying your fear is irrational. How you feel is how you feel. But your fear is irrational. And that takes you, that's the soul work. That takes a long time to undo the programming, to undo your fears, to even uncover your fears, to even study your beliefs, to understand you are beliefs. And that's okay. But we just wanted to make being psychic, or everyone's psychic, guys, whether you realize it or not, because you all have a soul. Shocking, I know, but you have a soul, and your soul loves you. And all we're saying is your psychic ability gets closeness or opens up a communication with your soul. So I don't know why you're scared around that. I think your soul is absolutely beautiful. Your soul is pure love, and your soul loves you tremendously, and you are your soul. Daniel, would you like to elaborate on any of that?
Well, yes, I would say one thing is that we actually do in our society acknowledge psychic ability, for example, and it could be small things. You have an idea that you want to do something. You don't even talk about it. Someone else says, why don't we do this? And it's that same thing that you thought of, and you say, wow, you read my mind. Well, hello, right then and there, you're establishing a psychic connection. It's just that we don't perceive it in those terms. So we, as a society, are able to suspend the disbelief that you can telepathically, in this very subtle manner, connect the same idea. You can attract the same idea. And that's the thing that we've also learned through the teachings of Joshua, that we do not manufacture thoughts, that we attract them. And it is possible for two different people in two different bodies to attract the same idea. And that really is just like a small little thing, but it really is a building block to so much bigger.
Yes, I agree. And so one of my stories and how I became really psychic also was studying quantum physics, right? So that's a very sciency thing, but understanding quantum physics allows me to understand the psychic ability. It allows me to understand what I cannot see, that there are many things in play. It allowed me to be open and expansive. And you're right, Daniel, a mother's instinct, if a mother is at work and gets a feeling that her baby is sick, that is acceptable in society. Oh, that's mother instinct, right? But that's her communication with her inner self, alerting her that her child is sick, and she's all connected with her child, right? So she felt the energy of the child. There's many things in play why a mom knows their baby is sick. It also, it's acceptable, it's wanted in mothers to know when their little baby is sick. It's okay. For men, I would say it's okay for soldiers to sense their enemy, to sense that they're hidden behind the building, to sense that they're hidden in the room. It's acceptable for a soldier or warrior or an Indian brave to sense their enemy. But what are they doing? They're feeling the force field. They're feeling the energy. It's acceptable for a detective to have a gut feeling, if somebody's lying, if somebody's hiding something, right? So there are things in society that's acceptable for psychic ability, and we may not call it psychic, we might call it intuition, a gut feeling. But yes, I absolutely agree with you. It's subtle. Psychic energy is subtle.
Well, I would also say too, for anybody who's even heard of the word chakra, that so we have this idea that we have the brain and that all knowledge and wisdom and perception and everything, it stems from the brain. And whereas energetically, there's the 7 chakras. But that really establishes, so like you get that gut feeling, that's the solar plexus, right? And then like the throat chakra, speaking truth. Sometimes even speaking things spontaneously that just, you don't know where it's coming from, but you find yourself saying it. So it really is aligning all of the energy of you, because the energy is more than this. The energy really does radiate throughout the whole body, and it really extends beyond. But I would like to say too that there was a really interesting validation that I got channeling for you, is that the Oracle told me that they wanted to discuss 3 different things with you, and one of them was temperance. Okay, so I'd like to tell this temperance story if I have time. So I got attracted to the word temperance. Okay, so I knew that it did not mean to stop drinking wine, which you and I love red wine. It wasn't that kind of temperance. So, but what I got initially was like a sword. So to temper steel, it gets heated and cooled. So there, it's an interesting study in energy. But my team kept kind of dropping clues that there was more to it than that. And so when I was channeling, they encouraged me to Google the word temperance. I'm like, okay, well, so I type in literally in Google, and then the auto thing or whatever pops in with tarot. So it's like temperance and the tarot. I'm like, okay, I don't really know much about the tarot. I have an astrologer friend that has many decks, and I've kind of like casually looked at a couple, but I don't know that much about the tarot. So I look up tarot, temperance, discover that it's a card or whatever. And they tell me we want Isabel to pull the temperance card from the tarot deck and do a meditation with it. And so when I channel all that and I send it to you, you tell me like, oh yeah, I connect really strongly to that card. So that was just like a major validation of psychic ability right there, you know? And it's really kind of like, I would really say for anything, whether it's psychic, whether it's channeling or anything else, you have to really be open. You know, you have to be open because we have such a perception of what we're looking for. And that really is, in my mind, kind of like getting out of your way to just be open to receive all of this energy, right? So, and another thing too is like even why some channels close their eyes when they're channeling, it's kind of like dulling one of our five senses, right? To open up that psychic door to that sixth sense is what we call it in our society, right? And just to open ourselves to the higher frequencies and the higher dimensions where all of this information is, but we don't access it because we're kind of like staying at this third dimensional, we're stuck in this third dimensional reality, right? So I guess at this point, talk a little bit more about, I guess, about maybe light workers and way showers, these things, because I think this is an important conversation to be had as well.
Yes. So light workers are, or way showers are the ones who are waking up first. So if you guys are finding this video, your soul asked you to watch this to trigger something within you, a remembrance. Light workers are waking up first, then from society. And there is an ascension going on. I know, shocking, but there really is an ascension. And ascension means that all of humanity will be enlightened. All of humanity will understand that they will have connection within their soul. They'll be able to connect with their soul. They'll understand they are not separate. They are part of oneness. And we're moving away from fear into love. So the duality of the 3D, we call it in our community, the 3D world or duality. The new earth is the ascended earth. And it's okay, but the light workers are helping humanity to recognize the lightness within them, to recognize the love within them. There are different types of light workers. I do to research light workers to see what resonates with you. There are grid workers, there are way showers, there are many different types, and you will resonate with it. When you read it, you're like, oh my gosh, I think that's me. But yes, and you, I don't know, Daniel, it just seems like you can recognize other light workers. Like,
yes.
we're part of like this community. It's pretty cool.
Yes, definitely. And I will say another thing too is that it's really interesting to me that, like for example, that you live in Connecticut, but other people, we know people that live in Australia, in the UK, and other countries that we're all being brought together at this time. And really, there was so much intention and purpose for us being born in this incarnation at this point in the timeline, because the internet has really brought us all together and really connected those individuals, because kind of like maybe in your small town or even in a metropolis like Houston, you may not necessarily cross paths with somebody that has a leaning towards the psychic realm or spirituality is in terms of consciousness, you know. But I would also like to talk about how the Oracle has worked through me, which I really find to be unique. Well, first of all, and this is something that they're encouraging me to channel, but I really see myself as stemming from the masculine, the divine masculine of the scribe. So at the Oracle at Delphi, there was the Pythia, who was the priestess who actually spoke and channeled the information from the Oracle. And then according to some scholars, there was a male scribe who would write down what was gobbledygook sounding, but write it into these very eloquent verse that was then given to the person or people that were there for to appeal to the oracle for the truth, for the information, right? So, and I've really found that my channeling ability is really in written form. I have channeled for not only you, but others in our community. And some people have really been astounded, like, oh my God, I mean, just really raving about what was in written form. And I think that that's another thing too in our community, that there's certain people that go into, I guess, a trance channel state. And those, it's like, 100%, like nobody doubts that, or very few doubt that those people are really channeling. But I really think that in this time of awakening, that more of the spectrum of channeling is being opened up. You channel, I channel. I mean, there's many people in our community that channel. We may not, some of us trans channel, some of us don't, but there's many different valid explorations.
I agree. And there's channeling of light codes and sound codes or sound alchemy. And there are many different forms of channeling. There's also channeling of artwork or creating movies. You cannot, there's such a wide variety. When Daniel said to be open, don't confine your abilities. Allow it to be expressed in any form or shape it takes, because it's for you. It will feel natural. It will feel kind of easy. I'm not saying you won't have fear initially, but I'm saying once you start doing it, it will feel like, oh, okay. I don't know, right, Daniel? It feels natural.
Well, and then too, I guess, to go back to just the performing in visual art. So maybe undoubtedly you've noticed someone when they're singing and they're really feeling the lyrics, right? And they're singing, they'll close their eyes. And again, that it's just that you're so tapped into that vibration that's flowing through you that it's almost kind of like for a moment you just close your eyes and you're totally tapped in, right? So it's really not something unusual. I think that there's a lot of superstition. And one thing that the Oracle has explained to me that I would just like to touch upon real quick. So the development of mankind, whether you believe that mankind's been around for a few 100,000 years or a billion years, whatever, it's kind of like there's not really consensus among the paleontologists at this point, because there's some interesting findings in the world of some skeletal remains. But the thing is that, so think about in ancient times, they did ritual sacrifice. Like there was deep, deep superstition, right? So we go through eons of all the superstition. Then we get to about maybe a couple hundred years ago, and suddenly we become more rational and less superstitious. And so the curve is bending upward, but we have this long tail, right, of being so superstitious. So when somebody says that they channel a collective or an entity, people automatically think, oh my God, demon possession. And it's really not that. And again, just to be totally open, sometimes, I mean, we know people that have been in connection with an entity that they even gave a name to as a child, right? But they never told anybody, because oh my God, they're gonna think that I'm, they're gonna lock me up. I don't know, but it's just really something that's very important to just open yourself up to. I mean, I have a family member that is very intuitive as well, that has seen non-physical spirit, or what people would call a ghost, and that also has a maternal and feminine intuition that's very strong. Without going into a story, there was a physical manifestation with another family member that took a really critical turning. It turned for the worse, or for different, let's not say better or worse. And a week before, my other sister just really had this strong like disturbance, like, okay, I really feel off, and I know it's not work, and I know it's not this, and I know it's not that. So you just get, so she was trapped into some feeling that she really didn't know about, and that would reveal itself a week later. So just again, kind of demystifying all of this stuff, I think is really important. And also because we were discussing yesterday, that is important for those of us who are spiritually awakened, like to stop hiding. Like, it's really spirit or source. We call it source consciousness. Source consciousness is not wanting us to stay in our little group, to just talk amongst each other in these Facebook groups or on videos or whatever. Like, they want us to be open. They want us to be light workers. I mean, it really is, and it's not that you have to stop everyone in the street and say, okay, I'm psychic and I'm a light worker and I'm a way shower, but just showing the way, just walking and standing in your truth, really, about all of this is of utmost importance. So do you have anything that you'd like to say about that as well?
I agree. And I think to be openly psychic kind of, I don't know if it reminds you of being openly gay, Daniel, right? Because society kind of shuns that. And society kind of shuns a little bit about being psychic. I'm not I'm making a little bit of a comparison, and I'm not saying it's sort of like when I tell my friends who want to have children, I say you should get a puppy first. I'm not saying a puppy is a child. I'm just saying it's a good experience to get a puppy because a puppy is very demanding and a child's very demanding. And so I would say, to me, it may be similar of, interracial marriage. Anything that goes out of the norm of society will always feel a little awkward or a little scared.
Well, I would say a couple of things with that. I would first say that because the Oracle always talks to me about suspension of disbelief. They say that this is the time of integration. They describe integration as the bridge of consciousness. And I actually have a blog where I actually post channelings, but the suspension of disbelief really starts with someone knowing you. Like, for example, me as a gay person, somebody meeting me, and it's not that I'm, shoving it in their face, but they know me, and they're able to see, like, okay, I know somebody that's gay. Well, it's the same thing. Like, I know somebody who is psychic, or I know somebody who's spiritually awakened. It gives them a point of reference. It shines a light, right? But another thing too is like it's really the importance of not insisting that that person accept, acknowledge, validate you, right? Because we're not doing this to get validation from the outside world. There's really just standing in again, our consciousness, our soul, and not looking to the outside world, but yet at the same time shining a light. Like, I am a living example of somebody who embodies this, right? And I think that that's really important too. But I think that over time, the more that people are exposed to certain things, it again demystifies it, and not everybody will accept it. I mean, there are people maybe who would watch this that would think that, let's just say centuries ago we would have been burned at the stake, but it really is just being authentic, your authentic true self, without any insistence on external validation or any attachment to the outcome, because that's another thing that is really big in our community, is not to be attached to any outcome. It's just really standing in your truth and in your power, honestly, and just sort of, again, showing the way for those who may be compelled to go in that direction. But I really do feel like we're really integrating in so many beautiful ways. And there will be moments today in our world, there are things going on that some people really feel like has awakened them. Some people feel resistance towards, but it really is for the benefit of all of humanity. And really, we're not in this for just ourselves. Then this is really a big part of the awakening. It's like we're not just awakening just for us to awaken. It's really for the whole world to really come together, for that unity consciousness to be developed.
That's right. Moving into oneness,
Yes.
understanding there's more than what you can see. And we hope that this conversation with Daniel and I has demystified a few things and made you feel more comfortable. And perhaps you can reflect upon your own experiences and your own breadcrumbs and see your own abilities from within. So thank you so much, Daniel, for having this candid conversation. I really appreciate it. I love collaborating with you.
Yes, I love collaborating with you too. But tell them how they can find you, and I'll tell them how they can find me if they're so inspired.
Yes. So you can go on Facebook and search Attracting Wisdom, or you can go on to my website, www.attractingwisdom.com. I'm on iTunes. I have some podcasts on iTunes, Spotify,
Podbean.
Yes. So all you have to do is just do a Google search, Attracting Wisdom. You'll find me. Trust. I'm also on Instagram. Daniel, what about you?
Yes, I have a website, Answers from the Oracle, and also to a Facebook group with the same name, and I post channelings from the Oracle there and then share them onto my group page on Facebook.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for watching this video and listening to us. Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.